Thank you, Father Coop, Father Becker, Reverend Fathers, any honored guests, and my brothers. I can remember wanting to be a priest since I was very young and can't really remember a time at which this wasn't really the plan. Even my plans to win 10 Super Bowls and be President of the United States included retiring to my true calling of being a really cool, really holy priest. So when I was very young, my parish got a new pastor, and as a good American parishioner, 5 or 6-year-old little Stephen immediately decided how I was going to do things better than Father Tom when I was a priest because he changed too much. He was too different from Father Don, his predecessor. So by the time I was in first grade, I had an odd habit of bringing paper and pencil to Sunday Mass. You see, first and second grade little Stephen would take notes on Father Tom's homilies because they were so good. He was very funny and entertaining, and very importantly also, he was very wise and full of that wisdom, and you could tell he loved his people and Jesus. So don't be fooled, though. My intentions when I was taking those notes weren't entirely pure. I intended to steal those homilies and deliver them as my own one day when I was a priest. It seemed like the most simple way to be as good a preacher as Father Tom, so. Then in second grade, I received my first confession, and I was inspired by a book about St. Therese, so I asked God, could you make it snow on the day of my first confession? So it snowed, which was really cool. So between confession for the first time, which I did not confess stealing homilies, and between the snow, I began to really feel, the Father's love for me at that young age, and I felt very special and loved. So I also had been practicing for a while hearing confessions on my bear Tommy. He was a big sinner. Truth be told, I was actually the one who guided his hand to hit the other stuffed animals and break their Lego ships, but so then came third grade, and about third grade is when I started serving Mass. And I still remember very vividly the day that I was trained on how to say Mass. It was a milestone for me. I'd been wanting to serve Mass for a long time, and I very vividly remember that. So I continued to serve Mass then all the way through high school. And it was great because you were up there serving Mass, right? But then you also got to interact with Father in the sacristy before and after Mass. And those two things combined all the way through high school really inspired in me a real desire to be a priest. At home, being homeschooled, I was also learning a lot about the faith. I was memorizing the Baltimore Catechism and other fun things like that. I was also learning how to pray, though, and my mom or my dad would often invite me or some of my brothers to adoration when they would go, and so I learned to pray a lot, especially through my parents' example. On my 13th birthday, my parents bought me a 4-volume of the Liturgy of the Hours, and that was pretty cool. I mean, when you get here to seminary, the Liturgy of the Hours is just super confusing, but when you're 13 and you're the only one with these 4 books, they're really, really cool. So yes. So I also got involved in Schoenstatt, which is a Marian movement, and that really, it affected me in a couple of big ways. And one of them was, of course, leading me to a good relationship with our Blessed Mother, which was very, very good. But then also, I got to experience and see the universality of the church through Schoenstatt, which is a very big international sort of deal. So I got to see a lot of other people that were not Americans as well, because they'd often go to Waukesha, where the international center was. And I got to see that there are more than just American Catholics, and that actually was I don't know, it just instilled that desire even more, and I guess stoked that flame. So, by the time I got to high school, though, I was still very convinced that I was going to be a priest. I was so strongly convinced that, I guess I should say that first in middle school I thought that no one else was going to be a priest based on my religious ed experience. No one else was even going to consider it because other people at religious ed were, to say the least, a little disengaged. So that was part of my motivation. I'm like, who else is going to consider it? So by high school, this had kind of matured to an actual, more genuine desire and recognition that other people aren't evil because they're not homeschooled. So I realized, especially as you can tell, there are many non-homeschooled people that consider being priests too. And I also realized I wasn't an invincible saint yet, because in middle school, one of the other things that I thought about was, I was so firmly convinced that I was going to be a priest, I'm like, I could just skip seminary because I don't need to discern anymore. Not true. But again, yes, high school was very good for me. But then when I was actually applying to colleges, the question wasn't whether or not I should join seminary. It was whether or not I should first go to a different school and then become a pre-theologian. So I was pretty certain on my vocation when I was applying to go to college. So, brothers, God knows how much He loves us, and He leads us along our path to the challenges that He is preparing us for, and His healing love will transform any and all of us, and He will lead us to our vocations. All we have to do is trust Him and learn to have a deep relationship with Him, and He'll lead us there. Praise be Jesus Christ.